My dad took my brother, my mom took my sister, and I was left in state care. Years later, they all tried to come back into my life, but I wasn't the same kid they had abandoned. Can you imagine being 8 years old, watching your entire family splinter into pieces and realizing nobody wants you? That feeling, that raw, gut-wrenching abandonment, it carves a hole inside you. But trust me, that little girl is gone. In her place stands a woman who built her entire world from the ground up, because the journey to get here was intense. Rewind 24 years. I was Goldie, just an 8-year-old in a suburban Chicago brick ranch house. We had it all: a tire swing, a golden retriever named Rusty, and a life that felt like a storybook. My dad, Jack, was a construction contractor, smelled of sawdust and mint. My mom, Diane, a nurse with an infectious laugh and hair I loved to brush. My older brother, Noah, my protector, taught me to bike, shared his baseball stats. My little sister, Sophie, with her wispy curls and stuffed elephant Ellie, followed me everywhere. Our home wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling, mismatched chairs in the kitchen, pancake sundaes. Summers at Lake Michigan, building sandcastles, ice cream dripping down our wrists. For my 8th birthday, Mom threw me a party with a rainbow cake. I felt so special, so loved, completely oblivious that it was the last time we'd all be together, truly together, as a family. Looking back, there were whispers of trouble, too faint for a child to hear. Dad's work fluctuating, Mom's tight smile when bills arrived. But kids, we don't see those cracks until the foundation crumbles. Our home felt solid, warm, full of magic. Game nights, shared dinners, Mom's goodbye kisses. I believed it was as sturdy as our brick house. I couldn't have imagined we'd become strangers, or that I'd be the one left behind. The first rail crack happened when Dad lost a huge contract. I remember him coming home, hours late, face gray. Mom sent us to the basement, but their voices, sharp and accusatory, carried down. How could you have banked everything on this one job? It was a sure thing, Diane. That night, I heard Mom crying muffled. Dad slept on the couch. Breakfast was silent, thick with tension. Weeks later, Mom started extra shifts, leaving before we woke, returning after we were in bed. Her absence created a hollow space. Dad tried to fill it, but he was always on the phone, chasing contracts. One night, I heard him whispering about the mortgage, the fear in his voice tying my stomach in knots. Noah withdrew, closing his door, giving up baseball. Sophie started having nightmares, screaming for monsters under her bed. I'd crawl in with her, whispering reassurances I wasn't sure I believed myself. Our parents were too deep in their own struggles to notice us. Christmas was a ghost of celebrations past, no tree, no presents. Just a quiet dinner, our parents barely speaking. My grandparents visited in January, offering help, which Dad, in his shattered pride, refused. We'll figure this out ourselves. But they weren't. Dad started drinking, Mom became emotionally distant. Mornings became my responsibility. 8 years old, I was making cereal, brushing teeth, walking Sophie to school, promising to meet her later, a role no child should have. One afternoon, I came home early and heard Mom on the phone. I don't know what our options are anymore, Lisa, the kids. I can't give them the life they deserve like this. Then, the words that froze my blood: we've talked about separation, but what happens to the children then? Who goes where? Who goes where, as if we were furniture to be divided. The fighting escalated. One night, Dad punched a hole in the living room wall. I watched from the stairs, terrified, as Mom screamed. Noah pulled Sophie and me back to my room. We huddled together, listening to our family implode. Days later, I saw Mom crying silently in the bathroom. I wanted to comfort her, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the crushing realization that some hurts were too big for a child to fix. I started inventing distraction games for my siblings: fort building, scavenger hunts, anything to give them moments of normal in the chaos. But I couldn't distract myself. Something irreparable had broken. Dad moved into the basement guest room. Then came the day I found divorce papers in Mom's purse. Not temporary. This was the end. That evening, after we were supposed to be in bed, I sat at the top of the stairs, listening. Noah should come with me, Dad said. He needs a male influence. Fine, but Sophie stays with me, Mom replied. She's too young to be without her mother. I held my breath, waiting for them to mention me, to fight for me. But the conversation moved on to money visitation. My name never came up. It was like I didn't exist. That night, I cried silently into my pillow, a devastating realization washing over me. In the redistribution of our family, there was no place for me. The morning everything changed started like any other. I made breakfast. Downstairs, Dad and Noah were packed. We're going on a trip, Dad said, not looking at me. Noah's eyes were red. He hugged me, whispering, I'll call you soon, I promise, his voice wobbling. I clung to him, knowing this wasn't a trip. Dad barely looked at me, just a quick, be good for your mom, Goldie, before ushering Noah out. I saw garbage bags in the car, full of belongings. Not trip luggage. Moving boxes. After they left, Mom locked herself in her room, sobbing. Sophie kept asking where Dad and Noah go. I didn't know what to say. We ate cereal for dinner. I read Sophie 3 extra stories, trying to cling to normal. The next day, Mom was still in her room. I made peanut butter sandwiches. I called Dad's cell over and over. Voicemail. That night, Sophie and I slept together again, desperate for comfort. On the third day, Mom emerged, hollow-eyed. She packed Sophie's clothes. Sophie and I need a fresh start. We're going to stay with Aunt Lisa. What about me? I asked, panic rising. When are we coming back home? Her expression flickered between guilt and resolve. You'll stay here for now. We'll come back for you when things settle down. I promise. I didn't believe her. Sophie cried, reaching for me as Mom pulled her away. Why can't Goldie come? Goldie needs to stay here in case your father comes back, Mom said, a lie I recognized even then. Then they were gone. And I was alone. 8 years old. Completely alone. The first day by myself, I pretended it was an adventure. Ice cream for breakfast. TV shows Mom never allowed. Jumping on my parents' bed. But as darkness fell, freedom gave way to terror. The house made strange noises. I slept with all the lights on, Rusty curled at my feet. The next morning, I realized no one had fed him. I poured an entire box of cereal into his bowl. By the third day, food was dire. I'd exhausted cereal, peanut butter. Milk was sour. I didn't know how to cook. Rusty and I shared crackers. I kept calling Mom and Dad. No answers. Just my tearful messages asking when they were coming back. The silence was deafening. On the 4th day, Mrs. Garcia from next door knocked. She'd noticed. I lied, Mom's at the store. But she saw Rusty unfed, unwalked. Where are your parents, sweetie? I broke down, telling her everything. Dad took Noah. Mom took Sophie. Nobody took me. Mrs. Garcia's face transformed from concern to horror. She brought me to her house, fed me, and called. That evening, a social worker, Ms. Reynolds, sat across from me. Her voice soft, but her eyes held pity, an expression I'd see a lot over the years. She said I had to go with her, that I couldn't stay in the empty house. I packed a small bag. Took my stuffed bear, Howard. Another loss in a week full of them. A week later, family court. Cold, sterile. Adults talking about me, not to me. Neither of my parents showed. The judge, an older man with kind eyes but a stern mouth, declared me a ward of the state. Just like that, in less than 2 weeks, I went from having a family to being a case number in the foster care system. My first placement, the Thompsons. 3 kids, took in foster kids for the income. Not cruel, not kind. I slept on a pull-out couch in the basement. My few belongings in a garbage bag. Their kids regarded me with suspicion. I wrote letters to Noah and Sophie, pouring out my heart. Addressed them to Aunt Lisa's. They came back weeks later, marked return to sender, no forwarding address. Once, I called Dad's cell. A sharp woman answered. He can't come to the phone. I said, it's Goldie, his daughter. Hope surged. There was a pause. I'll tell him you called, she said, before hanging up. He never called back. My calls to Aunt Lisa's were met with vague, uncomfortable answers. Your mom is going through a lot, or they'll reach out when they're ready. Never a direct connection. Gradually, I learned they'd both moved out of state. Dad and Noah to Wisconsin. Mom and Sophie to Indiana. Neither left contact info with the agency. Neither attended my custody hearings. Neither seemed to care what happened to me. 6 months in, Noah's birthday card arrived, weeks late. Happy birthday, Goldie. Miss you, Noah. No return address. Just proof he was alive. I slept with it under my pillow until it fell apart. Mrs. Thompson, seeing me crying over the tattered card, awkwardly patted my back. Sometimes families just can't stay together. But you're safe here. I wasn't. A month later, the Thompsons wanted to focus on their biological children. I was packing my garbage bag again off to new strangers. My second placement, the Ramirez family. 5 other foster kids in a cramped 3-bedroom house. Mr. Ramirez was militaristic, Mrs. Ramirez indifferent. I shared a bunk bed, my space 1/3 of a dresser and a plastic bin. Noah's card, now taped up, was my most prized possession. I changed schools mid-year, became quiet, the new girl, the foster kid. Teachers ignored me. Other kids lost interest. Damon, an older foster boy, stole my bracelet, the only gift I'd received since being in the system. When I confronted him, he threatened to report me for breaking rules. I learned another harsh lesson. Sometimes you have to choose which losses you can live with. Social workers came and went, each knowing less than the last. I learned to say what they wanted to hear. Complaining rarely helped. One particularly rushed social worker casually mentioned an update. Noah was playing Little League in Wisconsin, doing well. Sophie was in Indiana, taking dance. They were thriving. I was surviving. A bitter pill to swallow. After 8 months with the Ramirez, I moved again. To the Williams family. On the surface, perfect. Tidy suburban home. Cookies after school. Own room. I dared to hope. But Mrs. Williams's warm persona vanished behind closed doors, replaced by cutting remarks and impossible standards. Nothing was good enough. My grades, my chores, my appearance. You're so lazy. No wonder your parents didn't want you, she'd say, smiling at Mr. Williams. Or, if you were my real daughter, I'd be embarrassed to take you anywhere. The verbal abuse was constant, careful, never enough for mandatory reporting. I learned to be invisible. Developed insomnia, planning how to avoid criticism. My grades suffered, giving her more ammunition. After a year, I moved to my worst placement, the Jacksons. Mrs. Jackson collected foster checks, spent the money on herself. We were on strict food rations. Meals monitored, snacks forbidden, food withheld as punishment. At 14, hungry and desperate, I ran away. 3 days in a park, sleeping on benches, stealing food, before police found me. The Jacksons didn't want me back. Another temporary home. It was during this transition that my high school counselor, Miss Rivera, saw something in me I'd long stopped seeing, potential. Despite everything, my test scores were exceptional. You're smart, Goldie, she said. Really smart. That brain of yours is your ticket out. My new placement, Miss Harriet. An older single woman who'd fostered dozens of teens. Not overly affectionate, not cold. Clear boundaries, consistent expectations. Her house was modest, filled with bookshelves. I don't expect you to call me Mom, she said. But while you're here, you'll have stability, respect, and opportunities. What you make of them is up to you. For the first time in years, genuine stability. Dinner at 6, homework until 8, reading time, lights out. She checked my assignments, not to criticize, but to help. She attended parent-teacher conferences. With Miss Harriet, I found solace in art. She noticed me doodling, bought me proper sketch pads. I spent hours drawing, expressing emotions I couldn't verbalize. She never gushed, but she hung my better pieces in the hallway. A quiet acknowledgement. By junior year, Miss Rivera and Miss Harriet were pushing college. They helped me research scholarships, guided my essays. I allowed myself to imagine a future beyond the system. Then, senior year. Miss Harriet was diagnosed with terminal cancer. 6 months, maybe less. I was 17, almost out of the system anyway, but another move, another adjustment, was exhausting. More than that, I was losing the only adult who had consistently shown up for me in nearly a decade. She declined quickly. In hospice within 3 months. I was back in a temporary placement, this time with a couple who tried daily to convert me. I visited Miss Harriet every day after school, holding her hand, reading to her until she passed. Her funeral was small, dignified, attended by a motley crew of former foster kids she had touched. It was the first time since my family's abandonment I felt genuine grief. 2 months later, I turned 18. Aged out. High school diploma, community college acceptance with scholarships, $752 in savings from part-time jobs. No family to call. No home to return to. No safety net. With my meager savings, I secured a spot in a shared apartment in a questionable Chicago neighborhood. It was small, but it was mine. I enrolled in community college, working 2 jobs, mornings at a diner, evenings retail. 5 hours of sleep a night, but this exhaustion felt purposeful. Paychecks, credits, forward momentum. Second semester, an art history elective. Dr. Mason noticed my drawings in my notes, asked to see more. I reluctantly showed him my sketchbook, expecting polite encouragement. He was genuinely impressed. You have a natural understanding of composition and light. Have you considered art seriously? The thought had never crossed my mind. Art was my escape, my therapy, never a career. But his interest sparked something. He connected me with the art department, helped with scholarships, mentored me. By the end of my 2nd year, a full scholarship to State University. For the first time, genuine pride. I created this. University housing. Zoe became my first real best friend since childhood. Business major, practical, ambitious, but with a creativity that complemented mine. We talked late into the night. You never talk about your family, she noted. Don't have one, I replied, the casualness of years smoothing over the pain. Zoe didn't push. Just nodded and said, well, you can share mine for holidays if you want. My mom always cooks enough for an army. That simple offer of inclusion meant more than she could know. For 3 years, I spent holidays with Zoe's boisterous family. A glimpse of what I'd missed, but also what was possible. Junior year, work-study at the campus gallery. I discovered a talent not just for creating art, but for curating it. Understanding how pieces tell a story. I loved the business side too. That same year, I met James in an advanced painting class. Thoughtful, patient. Our relationship built slowly. He was the first person I told the full story of my abandonment. 3 a.m., sitting on his apartment floor, words spilling out after years of careful containment. I kept waiting for you to have trust issues, he said when I'd finished. I laughed through tears. What do you think this is? I've known you for 8 months, and I'm just now telling you about my childhood. He smiled. Fair point, but you're here. You're letting me in. That takes incredible courage. James helped me see that my defensive walls, while necessary for survival, were also preventing me from fully experiencing life. With his encouragement, I started therapy. Finally addressing the abandonment trauma I'd carried alone for so long. Graduation. Bittersweet. Diploma with honors. Cheers from Zoe and James. But the absence of family was acute. No parents beaming. No siblings waving. Still a hollow space. After graduation, an assistant position at a small contemporary art space in Chicago. Barely minimum wage, but my foot in the door. I shared an apartment with Zoe. Continued therapy. My career progressed. Within 2 years, associate curator. My eye for emerging talent, my ability to communicate with artists, set me apart. But personal growth wasn't as straightforward. One day, on Michigan Avenue, I spotted a man who looked like my father. Same build, same walk. The panic attack hit without warning. Gasped for breath, 8 years old again, watching him drive away. That sent me back to therapy, renewed commitment. I needed to address not just the abandonment, but its ongoing impact on my daily life. Healing wasn't a destination, but a process. I cultivated a chosen family. Zoe. Marcus, the chef. Elena, the librarian. David, the software developer. We created our own traditions, weekend brunches, holiday gatherings, movie nights, impromptu dance parties. These rituals replaced the family traditions I'd lost. 3 years of saving every spare dollar, I opened my own small gallery. A former bookstore, modest, but mine. I showcased local artists, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds. The gallery's success exceeded expectations. Critics praised my fresh eye. Artists sought me out. By 29, enough financial stability to buy my first condo. The day I signed the mortgage papers, I sat in the empty space, keys in hand, and wept. Not from sadness, but from a profound realization. I had created security for myself. After years of temporary homes, I had tangible proof that I could provide what my parents had failed to give me. My relationship with Michael began during this period. An architect, he understood boundaries. Having lost his own mother young, he recognized the resilience that comes from early loss. We're both building our lives from scratch, he observed. There's something beautiful about that, creating exactly what you want without the weight of expectations. For years, I'd conducted periodic online searches for my family. Less frequent as I built my life. The desperate need for reconnection replaced by curiosity, then indifference. I made a conscious decision to stop searching. I found peace in accepting that family could be chosen. The people who showed up for my gallery openings helped me move, remembered my birthday, held me when grief surfaced. These were my real family. Earned through consistent presence, not genetic obligation. By my early 30s, I had created a life that felt whole, meaningful. Successful gallery, owned my home, loving friendships, a respectful relationship. The abandoned 8-year-old was still part of me, but she no longer defined me. I had become someone she could be proud of. Transformed abandonment into independence, rejection into self-reliance, loss into creativity. I thought I had made peace with my past. Then Noah found me on Facebook. And everything I thought I'd resolved came rushing back. The message arrived on an ordinary Tuesday. I was in my gallery office. The notification pinged. I clicked it absently. Noah Winters. My coffee cup slipped, shattering. Hot liquid splashed my ankles. I barely noticed. My entire focus narrowed to the small rectangle of text. Goldie, it's Noah, your brother. I've been looking for you for years. Can we talk? My assistant found me immobile. Helped clean up. It took 2 days for me to respond. 2 days of discussing with my therapist, Michael Zoe. My response was brief. I remember you. We can talk. Noah responded immediately with his number. When I called, his voice was deeper, but the same cadence. I can't believe I found you, he said, emotional. I've been searching. Why now? I asked, the question burning. The story unfolded over that call and several more. Noah was married, 2 kids, an engineer in Wisconsin. Dad didn't want us to contact you at first, he explained. Said clean breaks were better. A recent family health scare had renewed his search. He found my gallery website, my bio. Sophie's been looking for you, too, he added, another bombshell. She never stopped talking about you, even when we were all supposed to pretend the past didn't happen. Piece by piece, I learned what happened after they left. Dad's business stabilized, but he never achieved his dreams. Briefly remarried. Now single, early 60s, health problems. Mom stayed with Aunt Lisa only a few months, then moved to Ohio with Sophie. Remarried a stable, kind man. Still a nurse, now management. Noah said she expressed regret, but never concrete efforts to find me. Sophie, a teacher, engaged twice, never married. Lived near Mom, but with healthy boundaries. There's going to be a family reunion, Noah said. Dad's turning 60. The health scare made everyone realize time isn't infinite. They all want you to come. They all want me to come. The words felt foreign. The same people who left me alone at 8 years old. Noah's discomfort was palpable. It was a terrible time for everyone, Goldie. Dad was barely functioning. Mom was having a major depressive episode. They made horrible decisions, but they've changed. And you think that excuse is abandoning a child? I asked, anger finally breaking through. No, of course not, he backpedaled. Nothing excuses that. But people can regret their worst mistakes, right? They want a chance to apologize, to try to make things right. I laughed, a harsh sound. Make things right? I spent 10 years in the foster system, Noah. Do you have any idea what that was like? He didn't. How could he? While I was moving with garbage bags, he was playing baseball, having a normal adolescence. I found myself the messenger between parts of my family who hadn't communicated in years. Noah spoke with Sophie, limited contact with parents. Sophie talked to mom weekly, rarely dad. Everyone had complicated relationships, but united in this sudden desire for me. Sophie called a week after Noah. Her voice was both familiar and strange. "I never forgot you," she said, crying. "I had this picture of you from my 6th birthday. Kept it hidden because it made mom sad. Looked at it every night." Unlike Noah's pragmatism, Sophie swung between tearful nostalgia and enthusiastic plans for making up for lost time. She wanted immediate closeness. When I asked why she hadn't looked for me sooner, she revealed the family mythology. "I thought you were with Grandma and Grandpa." That's what Mom told me when I was little. By the time I found out the truth, no one seemed to know where you were. The reasons for my abandonment varied. Noah cited financial strain, mental health struggles. Sophie mentioned poor decision-making. Both acknowledged it was wrong, but framed it as a tragic mistake, not a deliberate choice. My parents had told extended family I was with an aunt, a fiction to preserve their image. No one questioned it enough to uncover the truth. I was left alone, entered state care. My friends were divided. Zoe was protective, suspicious. "They abandoned you once. What's to stop them from disappearing again?" Michael was measured. "You don't owe them forgiveness, but you might find some peace in hearing them out." My therapist helped me navigate the complex emotions. The anger I thought I'd process returned. Grief for lost years felt raw. And underneath it all, the small, persistent voice of the 8-year-old, why didn't they want me then? Why do they want me now? I agreed to meet Noah for coffee in Chicago. Seeing him was surreal, like looking at a funhouse mirror version of our father. His children called me Aunt Goldie during a video call he initiated. The title felt both foreign and painful. "Dad wants to talk to you," Noah said. "He's not well, Goldie. Doctors are talking 6 months, maybe a year. He wants to make peace." The request for forgiveness from a dying man should have moved me, but it only intensified my anger. Why was I expected to provide absolution on his timeline? Where had this desire for reconciliation been when I needed a father? A package arrived the next week from my mother. Her handwriting. Inside, "Howard, my teddy bear, I'd thought lost forever." A note. "I kept him safe for you. I should have kept you safe, too. I'm so sorry, Goldie. Please call when you're ready. Love, Mom." The presumption in that signature, claiming a relationship she'd forfeited, made me set the note aside. But I kept Howard, a tangible link to the child I had been. The formal invitation to the family reunion arrived next. An awkwardly worded card for a lake house in Michigan, the same place we'd vacationed. The location chosen for sentiment. But for me, the memories were tainted by what came after. I stood at a crossroads, pulled between the family I'd lost and the life I'd built without them. They were asking me to step back into a role I'd outgrown, the youngest daughter, the baby sister, the missing piece. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had become someone else entirely in their absence, forged by experiences they knew nothing about. The decision I made would define not just my relationship with them, but with myself. After weeks of deliberation and intense therapy, I made my decision. I would meet them, but not on their terms. Not at the lake house with its complicated memories. Not at a celebratory reunion, pretending 2 decades of abandonment could be erased with cake. Instead, I proposed a dinner at a neutral restaurant near my gallery, where I felt on solid ground. I wrote detailed letters to each of them beforehand, explaining exactly what had happened to me after they left. Not the sanitized version they might have imagined, but the harsh reality of foster care. The Thompsons with their garbage bags. Mrs. Williams with her cutting remarks. The Jacksons who used food as punishment. The constant relocations. The years of feeling unwanted, disposable. "I'm not writing this to hurt you," I explained, "but because if there's going to be any relationship, it needs to be based on truth, not comfortable fictions. You need to know who I became in your absence." Michael offered to come, a buffer. I appreciated his support, but declined. This was something I needed to face alone on my terms, with the strength I'd built. The evening of our meeting, I arrived early, selecting a table with a clear view of the entrance. I watched them arrive together, my estranged family, instantly recognizable despite the years. Dad, thinner, gray hair, moving with the careful steps of someone managing pain. Mom, face lined but still beautiful, nervously adjusting her necklace. Noah hovering protectively. Sophie, eyes scanning anxiously until they landed on me. The shock of seeing them together was physical, a tightness in my chest that stole my breath. These people who once formed my entire world were now strangers with familiar faces. I stood as they approached, accepting brief, awkward hugs. The physical contact, both alien and achingly familiar. "You look so beautiful," Mom said, tears already forming. "So grown up." "That tends to happen in 20 years, I replied, my voice steady. The initial conversation was strained. Safe topics. Careful questions. How was my gallery? Did I like Chicago? I answered politely, watching them exchange glances, unsure how to navigate the massive gulf between us. Dad cleared his throat. "Goldie, we owe you an apology." "What happened?" "What we did." "There's no excuse." "But there were reasons," Mom interjected quickly. "We were in such a terrible place financially, emotionally. I was suffering from depression. Your father was drinking too much. We thought we were making the best decision for everyone." I looked at her steadily. "What exactly was the best decision for me, Mom?" "Being left alone. In an empty house at 8 years old." The table fell silent. Sophie looked down. Noah shifted uncomfortably. Dad's face flushed. "It wasn't supposed to be like that," he finally said. "I thought your mom was taking you. She thought you were coming with me. By the time we realized, you were already in the system, and we were told it would be complicated to get you back." "Complicated?" I repeated, the word bitter. "So, you decided not to try, because it was complicated?" "I couldn't handle all 3 kids alone," Dad admitted, not meeting my eyes. "I was barely managing with Noah. And Sophie needed me completely," Mom added. She was so young, so confused. I took a deep breath. "I understand you both were struggling. I can even accept you made decisions from desperation. What I can't understand is why neither of you came back for me. Why you never called, never wrote, never tried to find out if I was okay." "We did try," Mom insisted. "We called the social worker a few times, but they said you were placed with a good family, that disrupting your new situation might cause more harm than good." I laughed humorlessly. "A good family? Do you want to know how many good families I lived with?" I proceeded to recount my placements, naming each family, what life had been like. Dates, locations, specific incidents burned into my memory. July 15, 2002, the Thompsons decided to focus on their biological children. Moved to the Ramirez house with 5 other foster kids. March 3, 2004, Mrs. Williams told me I was too stupid to ever amount to anything because I got a B- on a math test. November 28, 2005, the Jacksons locked the refrigerator over Thanksgiving weekend because I ate too much. As I spoke, their faces changed. From defensive justification to uncomfortable recognition of my reality. This wasn't the sanitized version from movies. This was the system as it actually existed for many children. A series of temporary homes with adults who saw you as a source of income or an obligation, rarely as a child deserving of love and stability. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty," I said when I finished. "I'm telling you because this is who I am. These experiences shaped me. If you want to know me now, you need to understand what happened to me then." Then I delivered my prepared statement about forgiveness and reconciliation. I can forgive what happened without pretending it didn't affect me. I can move forward without erasing the past. But any relationship we build has to acknowledge the reality of those 20 years. Not just sweep them under the rug. I set clear boundaries. No instant family reunions. No pretending we could pick up where we left off. No expectation I'd seamlessly integrate into traditions I'd never been part of. Individual relationships might be possible, built slowly, with respect for who we all were now. I won't be attending the reunion at the lake house. That's too much, too soon, in a place that holds complicated memories for me. I'm open to getting to know each of you individually, on neutral ground, if that's something you want. But I need to be clear, I have a full life with people who have been there for me consistently. They're my family too, and they will remain my priority. Their reactions varied. Dad became defensive, arguing they suffered too. Mom cried, repeating she'd never stopped loving me. Noah seemed relieved that everything was finally out in the open. Sophie listened intently, occasionally reaching for me, but respecting my space. After dinner, I left. My dignity intact. Not seeking their approval or absolution. Standing in my truth. The frightened, abandoned child had become a woman who could face her past without being diminished by it. In the weeks that followed, I met Sophie for coffee, just the two of us. Without our parents, she spoke more freely about her own struggles. We began building a tentative relationship. When the family Christmas invitation came, I politely declined, suggesting smaller, more manageable interactions. I wasn't ready for celebrations that would inevitably highlight the years of missed traditions, inside jokes I wouldn't understand, family photos that didn't include me. The experience prompted a new direction in my art. A series about abandonment and healing. Abstract pieces exploring the journey from fragmentation to wholeness. The exhibition received critical acclaim. I didn't explicitly share the personal story behind the art publicly, but those who knew me understood. 6 months after our dinner, my father called. His health had deteriorated. His tone was different. Less defensive, more reflective. "I failed you," he said simply. "Not just when you were 8, but every day after that when I could have tried to find you and didn't. I can't change it, but I wanted you to know that I know it. I know what I did." It wasn't a dramatic reconciliation. Not even traditional forgiveness. But it was an acknowledgement of truth. And that meant something. I've come to understand that forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened or pretending it didn't cause harm. It's about releasing yourself from the burden of anger, not for their benefit, but for your own peace. I forgave my parents not because they deserved it, but because I deserved to be free from the weight of resentment. Family is a concept I've had to define for myself. It includes the people who share my DNA, with whom I'm building careful, bounded relationships. But it also encompasses the friends who showed up consistently, the mentors who believed in me when I couldn't, the partner who understands my complex history without trying to fix or erase it. Family is who loves you, not just who shares your blood. The abandoned 8-year-old girl still lives within me. I honor her courage, her resilience, her determination to survive. But she is no longer defining me. She is a part of my story, not its entirety. In my gallery office, I have 2 photographs side by side. One is the picture Sophie kept all those years, showing a gap-toothed little girl with hopeful eyes. The other is a recent self-portrait, showing a woman with strength in her gaze and confidence in her stance. Both are me. Both are true. Both deserve to be seen. Have you ever had to rebuild your definition of family after loss or separation? Do you believe forgiveness is possible without forgetting?